Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. Representatives from Texas's San Antonio Police Department say that they are searching for a pair of unidentified female suspects this week after they allegedly shot and killed the manager of a local fast food restaurant during the middle of an argument that is believed to have been over counterfeit money. The awful situation took place at around 9:30 p.m. on July 7th at a Sonic fast food restaurant near the intersection of Babcock and Eckert Roads. It reportedly began when the two female suspects ordered in the restaurant's drive-thru and attempted to pay with counterfeit money. The night manager at the location, 33-year-old Daniel Shrewsbury, apparently caught on to the scam and went to confront the two women. However, instead of backing down, the women reportedly argued, with the situation taking a horrifying turn when one of them pulled a gun and opened fire. Witnesses described hearing 3 shots before they were told that an employee had been seriously hurt, and then police were on their way. That employee was Daniel, who stumbled back into the restaurant and fell down. Sadly, he was later pronounced dead. By the time police arrived, the suspects had fled the scene. Daniel's heartbroken family members described him as a hard-working and extremely caring person who had always been a role model for his younger siblings. Adding further tragedy to the situation is the fact that he was taken from them just days before he was supposed to celebrate his 34th birthday. At the time of this recording, the identities of the two female suspects remains a mystery, and police are now asking for help from members of the public to find them. Images of the two women have been released, and anyone with information has been asked to contact the San Antonio Police Department immediately. Representatives from Ohio's Columbus Division of Police released some truly wild body cam footage this week, following a bizarre early morning burglary spree in which a man allegedly broke into several businesses, including a pet store, all while dressed in a ridiculous leopard print onesie. The whole thing started just after 3 a.m. on July 9th, when Columbus police were alerted about a possible burglary in progress at a local Rooster's Chicken Wing restaurant in the city of Hilliard. Officers arrived at the scene to find the glass front door to the building had been smashed and that someone had clearly been inside. There was no sign of the suspect. However, the situation quickly took a strange turn when officers began to notice that this wasn't the only business that had been broken into. A Petland store in the same shopping plaza had a number of its windows smashed as well, and there were now several animals running around in the plaza. Among them were a dog, multiple birds, and at least 2 rabbits. Police were still in the process of investigating and catching all of the loose animals when they received a call about yet another burglary. This time, a famous footwear store had been broken into in a neighboring plaza a little further down this same section of road. To their frustration, officers arrived to find that once again the suspect was already gone. It wasn't until nearly 2 hours later, a little before 5 a.m., that police finally caught up with the man allegedly behind the burglary spree. The man, later identified as 31-year-old Matthew Pancake, was found sleeping on a bench outside of a Big Lots store in yet another local shopping plaza. He was dressed in a leopard print onesie and was apparently covered in broken glass. When police moved in to make an arrest, they were hit with one final, incredibly strange discovery. It turned out that Pancake hadn't just freed the animals at the Petland store. He'd taken some of them along for the rest of his alleged crime spree, specifically a pair of hamsters that were found shoved down the legs of his ridiculous outfit. Body cam footage shows officers removing the rodents from Pancake's pants while placing him under arrest. At the time, the 31-year-old was also apparently wearing a stolen dog collar. At the time of this recording, Pancake remains in custody. He is now facing multiple charges, including breaking and entering and vandalism. Representatives from Ohio's Columbus Division of Police say that they are searching for multiple suspects this week after a mother was killed during the middle of a carjacking while frantically trying to prevent the culprits from driving off with her young son. The horrifying incident began at around 1:30 a.m. on July 11th, when the victim, Alexa Stakely, went to pick up her 6-year-old son from his babysitter's apartment complex in Canal Winchester, located just outside of Columbus. The 29-year-old single mother had just put the boy in the back of her Honda SUV when she realized that she had forgotten something back at the apartment. Because her son was sleeping, she left him in the vehicle while she ran back to get it. In just that short window of time, every parent's worst nightmare took place. Alexa returned to see two unknown men inside of her SUV who were taking off with the vehicle with her son still inside. Alexa immediately began screaming for help and tried to alert the men that her boy was still inside the vehicle. However, they continued with the theft, apparently unaware of the sleeping child. In a last desperate bid to try and get them to stop, the 29-year-old mother jumped onto the hood of the SUV. The suspects allegedly responded by hitting the gas, causing Alexa to lose her grip and slam into the pavement below. In the process, she severely injured her head. Sadly, she would be pronounced dead just a few hours later. The two suspects initially continued driving, though abandoned the vehicle just a short distance away after presumably finally realizing that Alexa's son was inside. They fled the scene on foot, with police finding the 6-year-old boy still inside the SUV not long after. Thankfully, he was physically unharmed. Alexa's family and friends are understandably devastated by her death, especially at the thought that her son will now have to grow up without a mother. The 29-year-old reportedly worked incredibly hard to support them both, holding down 2 jobs to provide the best type of life for the 6-year-old as possible. Loved ones say that Alexa was employed as a speech-language therapist at an elementary school and also worked a part-time job as a server at a local restaurant. She had just finished up a shift at this second job when she was killed. At the time of this recording, neither of the two suspects had been identified, and police say that they believe they may have been part of a larger group of people that were seen peeping through windows in the area earlier that night. Authorities are now asking for help from the public to locate the perpetrators. Anyone with information is asked to call Central Ohio Crime Stoppers at 614-461-TIPS. Representatives from Washington, D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department say that multiple suspects have been arrested and charged this week, following the brutal murder of a 53-year-old man earlier this year, a crime that was allegedly orchestrated and carried out by a woman who had been using him as a, quote, sugar daddy. The whole thing started at around 11:20 p.m. on April 5th, 2024, when D.C. Metro Police were called to an apartment building on the 1300 block of Peabody Street Northwest. Initially, the call was about an unconscious man in one of the units there. However, when officers arrived, they realized the situation was far more serious. The resident there, 53-year-old Faisal Teklemariam, was dead. The man was found lying on his back with obvious head trauma and lacerations to his legs and hands. His body and the bed he was on were covered in shards of glass. During a search of the apartment, authorities discovered that several valuables belonging to Faisal could not be located, including his phone, a tablet computer, and other electronics. They weren't the only things that were missing, though. Disturbingly, so was the 53-year-old's right thumb. Over the next 2 months, police continued their investigation, spending extensive time going over the surveillance footage from the apartment building crime scene. The video showed several suspects going in and out of Faisal's unit in the days before he was found. From this, police were able to conclude that the 53-year-old had likely been killed sometime between April 1st and 2nd. After conducting interviews with multiple witnesses, they were also able to identify several of the people allegedly seen in that surveillance footage. One of these names quickly stood out: 22-year-old Tiffany Gray. Gray was known to have a prior relationship with Faisal, one that included past accusations of fraud. Several months before the murder, on October 4th, 2023, Faisal had called police claiming that Gray had stolen his cell phone while at his house and that she had made $1,600 worth of charges on his Cash App. He also stated that she had changed his Google password and that she was, quote, very smart with computers. More insight was added by a witness who claimed that Gray was a sex worker and that Faisal was her sugar daddy. The witness stated that they had heard Gray and several other people talking about killing the 53-year-old shortly after the crime, and that they had also discussed cutting off his thumb, which they had used to unlock his phone. This was allegedly done so that Gray could send more fraudulent cash transfers, as well as pay for Ubers, alcohol, and marijuana. Gray was arrested on July 1st in Prince George's County, Maryland, and is now facing a charge of first-degree armed felony murder. two of her alleged accomplices, 19-year-old Audrey Miller and 34-year-old Tommy Wack, were previously taken into custody and are facing similar charges. According to an affidavit, 2 other male suspects are being pursued in the case as well. However, it's unclear if they have been arrested and charged. In that same affidavit, authorities stated that Tiffany Gray has a lengthy criminal history that includes similar fraud-related offenses involving romantic partners. She reportedly has multiple arrests across Prince George's County for these incidents, as well as open warrants for assault. Authorities in Lane County, Oregon say that they busted a major organized retail theft ring last week, one that is accused of trafficking exclusively in a rather interesting niche: stolen Lego sets. The bust was the culmination of a months-long operation by the Springfield Police Department, who uncovered the scheme, which was allegedly being run out of a third-party reseller shop in the city of Eugene called Brick Builders. According to police, it worked this way. The shop's owner, Amon Henriksen, would purchase knowingly stolen unopened sets, which had been taken by criminals from retail stores all over the area, such as Target and Walmart. After buying the stolen sets at heavy discounts, Henriksen and his business partner, Albert Nash, would allegedly sell the sets at inflated prices to unsuspecting customers. Police allege that Henriksen's involvement in particular went far beyond just illegally purchasing and selling the stolen merchandise. They say that he went as far as to instruct crooks which Lego sets to steal in order to resell them for the highest returns. These included highly sought-after sets like the Back to the Future DeLorean, the custom ambulance from Ghostbusters, and the Star Wars Millennium Falcon that retails for roughly $230 US. All that being said, apparently it wasn't exactly difficult for police to figure out what was going on. The thieves who sold to Henriksen and Nash could be seen going in and out of the building at all hours of the day, coming out with cash in hand. As it turned out, many of them were more than willing to spill the beans about what was happening because Henriksen was ripping them off as well. Taking advantage of the fact that many of them were drug addicts in desperate need of cash, the crooked businessman apparently paid them just a tiny fraction of what the stolen goods were worth. In an announcement this week, Springfield police showed off the haul of merchandise they had seized in photos following their raid of the Brick Builder's shop. The pile of sets was so big that a drone needed to be used to get everything in frame, and the piles themselves stacked over 5 feet high in some places. Authorities say that they have estimated the goods to be worth roughly $200,000. At the time of this recording, Henriksen and Nash remain in custody and are facing charges of organized retail theft. Representatives from the NYPD say that they have made an arrest in a truly chilling case this week, several days after the body of a woman was found hidden in a sleeping bag that had been dumped with trash bags along the side of a local street. The disturbing situation came to light on the afternoon of July 5th, when employees of a bar in Manhattan's Kips Bay neighborhood made an awful discovery. While moving some trash bags that had been left out for collection, they noticed a sleeping bag that was on top of a dolly in the middle of the pile. At first, they thought it was part of their own garbage. However, when they smelled a foul odor, they decided to take a closer look. To their horror, inside of the sleeping bag was the decomposing remains of a woman. When police were called, they quickly confirmed the grisly discovery. Not long after, the remains were identified as those of a local 31-year-old woman named Yasmin Williams. She had died of a close-contact gunshot wound to the head. The situation got even more unsettling when authorities began reviewing surveillance video in the area. Soon, they came across footage of a man in a motorized wheelchair who appeared to be dragging the same dolly with the sleeping bag on it down the street in the early morning hours of July 5th. He was holding a red strap that was attached to the dolly, the same strap that was found tied to a piece of scaffolding where the remains were found roughly 11 hours later. After asking around, investigators were reportedly pointed in the direction of one man, 55-year-old Chad Irish. Irish not only apparently lived in the same building as Yasmin, several people identified the pair as being friends. By July 8th, police were already preparing to file charges against Irish. However, things ended up moving quicker than expected after suspicions began to spread amongst residents in the community that he was responsible for Yasmin's murder. Tensions were inflamed further when Irish was questioned by some of these residents, and he allegedly pulled a gun on 2 different neighbors. Police were called, but by the time they arrived, an angry mob had gathered outside of the apartment building where the 55-year-old lives on East 28th Street, only a few blocks from where Yasmin's body was dumped. As officers and EMTs loaded Irish onto a stretcher and placed him under arrest, some people threw punches at him, others attempted to tear at his clothing, and some could reportedly be heard begging for the crowd to kill him. At the time of this recording, Irish has been charged with concealment of a human corpse in connection with Yasmin's death, as well as criminal possession of a weapon and menacing related to those aforementioned incidents in which he allegedly threatened his neighbors. He is yet to be charged with murder, though that could change shortly, as police have stated that they do believe Yasmin was killed in Irish's apartment. So far, no motive has been released behind the murder, though an NYPD representative told the media that a possible drug dispute was one of the angles they were exploring. It's unclear what led them to believe this, though, as in this same interview, the NYPD rep admitted that Yasmin had no prior history with drugs. The 31-year-old's family members are understandably devastated, saying that Yasmin had big dreams for her future. She had a degree in criminal justice, wanted to become a lawyer, and the same week of her murder was supposed to be starting a new job with New York City's Department of Housing Preservation. As for Chad Irish, police say that he has a lengthy criminal record dating back to 1985, which includes at least 21 prior arrests. These crimes reportedly include assault, drug possession, attempted arson, and attempted murder. And at the time of his arrest this week, the 53-year-old was already on parole for a robbery in the Bronx. Yasmin's family members say that they are already convinced of Irish's guilt, with her mother, Nicole Williams, telling the media in part, quote, "He took a young, beautiful girl, snuffed her out, took her life away from her, threw my daughter in a garbage bag. The whole community was upset because she didn't deserve that. He's scum." The family of a 22-year-old Mississippi woman are saying that she was failed by the justice system after her violent and abusive boyfriend was let out of jail and improperly supervised, leading to her horrifying murder last week. The situation began on July 2nd when family members of 22-year-old Lauren Johansson contacted police in the city of Hattiesburg to report her missing. The young nursing student's sister had arrived home at the property that they shared together to find a terrifying scene. Their front door was wide open, their security system had been destroyed, and Lauren was nowhere to be found. Immediately, loved ones began to fear the worst. They knew that Lauren's abusive boyfriend, 23-year-old Bryson Rivers, had been released from a jail in Tennessee just a few days earlier. Rivers had been arrested and charged there following a disturbing incident in December of 2023, one in which he allegedly kidnapped, attacked, and held Lauren against her will while the pair were on a trip to Nashville together. Despite this and several other incidents in the past in which Rivers had been violent towards Lauren, his bond ended up being reduced from $250,000 to $150,000, and he was released in June. Lauren's family were assured by authorities that Rivers would not be allowed to leave Davidson County and that he would be constantly monitored by a GPS ankle unit. However, due to a series of miscommunications and a lack of due diligence on the part of several parties involved in the 23-year-old's release, it's now alleged that there was never any proper oversight of him. On July 3rd, the day after Lauren was reported missing, police in Harrison County, Mississippi tracked her car to Wolf River Cemetery, located in a rural part of the county. When they arrived, they found the 23-year-old's lifeless body in the back of the vehicle. She had been brutally beaten and wrapped in sheets and trash bags. As officers approached the car, they saw Rivers running from the area into some nearby woods. A manhunt was launched that involved dozens of officers from 8 different agencies. The 23-year-old was finally caught about 9 hours later, with drone footage released by authorities showing the moment he was taken down. At the time of this recording, Rivers has now been charged with murder, possession of a controlled substance, kidnapping, and trafficking in a controlled substance. However, the arrest has come as little comfort to Lauren's heartbroken family. In a statement to the media, Lauren's father stated, quote, "I think the criminal justice system in Nashville, Tennessee failed my daughter and our family. The world shouldn't work this way. She was really beautiful, super smart. She had dreams and hopes that were larger than life. Everything she did, everything she touched turned to gold." People across the United States have been left reeling and demanding answers this week, following a terrifying assassination attempt targeting former President Donald Trump, an attack that left one of his supporters dead and at least 2 other people seriously injured. The disturbing incident took place on the evening of July 13th, when the former president stopped in the city of Butler, Pennsylvania for a scheduled event on the campaign trail. He was only minutes into his speech at the Butler Farm Show grounds a little after 6 p.m., when suddenly the energetic atmosphere was shattered. It started when a loud pop was heard coming from somewhere off in the distance, followed by a couple more in quick succession. Almost immediately after this happened, former President Trump could be seen grasping at the right side of his head and quickly ducking down. As Secret Service agents swarmed in to get him to safety, the reality of what was happening began to dawn on those in attendance. Many quickly tried to take cover themselves. Despite the obvious terror of the situation, according to multiple reports as well as statements from those in attendance, most of the crowd stayed remarkably calm. There were a few screams, but several told the media that things were still and quiet enough that those close to the stage could overhear Secret Service agents speaking as information was communicated between them and other members of their security teams in different areas. While the exact circumstances of what happened are still very much under investigation at the time of this recording, according to the latest available reports, it's believed that a man, now identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, was able to climb onto the top of a building outside of the event security perimeter. Once up there, Crooks, who was armed with a rifle, fired off several shots from about 160 yards away from the stage, one of which struck former President Trump in the right ear. The whole thing was over just as quickly as it began. Within moments, it was announced that Crooks had been killed by a Secret Service counter-sniper team. As the former president was taken off stage, he momentarily stopped and pumped his fist to the crowd of supporters to let them know he was okay. Sadly, the same could not be said for everyone in attendance. Despite the rapid response of the Secret Service snipers, Crooks was reportedly able to get off several shots before being neutralized. At least 2 people were wounded, while another was killed. The 2 wounded victims have since been identified as 57-year-old David Dutch and 74-year-old James Copenhaver. The deceased victim has been identified as 50-year-old former fire chief Corey Comparator. According to reports from media as well as witnesses, Corey was attending the rally that day with his wife and 2 adult daughters. As soon as shots were fired, the 50-year-old father threw himself on top of his family members, using his own body as a shield to protect them from the attack. Those who knew Corey say that they are not surprised at all that this is how he reacted to the situation. The 50-year-old was known for being a family man who put others first and would help anyone in need. As for the shooter, Thomas Crooks, far less is known. Authorities say that an explosive device was found in his car following the shooting, and that bomb-making materials were found during a subsequent search of his home. That search is still ongoing at the time of this recording. While Crooks' intentions appear fairly straightforward, his exact motivations and the reasoning behind them are still very much also a mystery as of the writing of this segment. What little information has been released appears to be conflicting. For instance, while the 20-year-old is said to have been a registered Republican, he only voted in the November 2022 state elections, and also previously made a small donation to a Chicago-based political action committee that supports Democratic candidates. What we do know is that the 20-year-old had no prior criminal record or known history of mental health issues. Perhaps the biggest unanswered question at the moment, though, is how something like this was able to happen in the first place. Of particular concern is just how close Crooks was able to get to where the campaign rally was happening with his weapon without being stopped by security. Once again, right now it seems that no satisfying explanations are available, and that this is something officials are currently investigating. As for the reaction to the assassination attempt, the crime has been widely criticized across both sides of the political aisle, with members of both major parties calling for the temperature to be turned down on rhetoric leading into the November election. Currently, the situation is still developing. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.